You ever watch a kid fight for a life that ain't hers like the world owed her nothing, but she still gave it everything?
Yeah, that happened.
It was somewhere over the Atlantic. Flight 914 turbulent so bad, the oxygen masks dropped like no one's in control. And right in the middle of that chaos, this little black girl, maybe 12 at most, straddling the chest of some rich old man in first class, hands locked over his heart, eyes locked on his face, yelling through her tears, "Don't you die on me." That man, Harold Langston, one of those silent titans, you know the type, built empires from nothing, owned half of downtown Seattle, but you'd never catch him smiling unless there was a profit in it. Zola didn't know him, not really. Just some cold stranger who barely looked up when she got seated. But 3 hours later, his life was in her hands. Now, let me back up a sec. Zola Rayne, Baltimore girl, raised by her grandma Pearl after her mom vanished into a storm of illness and silence. And when I say vanished, I mean it. No calls, no letters, just gone. Zola grew up not asking why anymore. She just kept her head down, stayed out of trouble, and read everything she could get her hands on. Her favorite book, What Makes Blood Move. Science fascinated her, especially the heart. Ironic, huh? Anyway, this flight to London wasn't supposed to be life-changing. Just a scholarship thing, some program for gifted kids to visit British museums. Pearl had hesitated, said the world ain't kind to girls who look like her traveling alone. But after some back and forth with the lawyers who sent the invitation and a notarized visit, no one expected Pearl finally caved. "Just be careful," she'd whispered from the gurney, her peppermint breath mixing with antiseptic. Not everyone smiles for the same reason. So, Zola packed her book, her best skirt, and that battered locket she never took off and boarded Flight 914. Now, here's where it gets weird. Harold Langston was already seated when she got on. First class, aisle seat, stiff posture, expensive watch, gaze colder than airplane steel. When their eyes met just briefly, Zola felt something. Recognition, maybe? Or just the eerie kind of déjà vu that wraps around your spine when something's off but you can't name it yet. She tried to shake it off, opened her book, tried to read, but the words blurred every few seconds. She'd glance up and find him watching her, not leering, not smiling, just watching. Then he'd look away fast, like he'd been caught trespassing in her life. Hours passed, then chaos. The plane dropped hard. Screams, gasps, luggage flying on her. And Harold. He slumped over, oxygen mask dangling useless beside him. His face turned the color of chalk. The flight attendants froze, the defibrillator buried under someone's spilled bag. And Zola. She moved. No one told her to. No one stopped her. She just climbed over the seat, dropped to her knees, and started compressions like she'd trained her whole life for this moment. The woman across the aisle screamed. Someone yelled for a doctor. But Zola kept going. Press, press, breathe, press again. And right when everyone thought it was over, he gasped. His eyes fluttered open, his lips trembled. Then he whispered something that made her hands stop midair. "I'm your father." And just like that, the world tilted on a whole new axis. They made an emergency landing in Gander, Canada. Paramedics rushed in. Zola, still shaken, was pulled back by a woman named Dorothea, a retired ER nurse who'd been sitting near the back and finally elbowed her way up. "You did good, baby," she'd said, guiding Zola back to economy. "You brought him back." But Zola wasn't celebrating. Her mind was racing. What the hell did he mean? See, Zola had never known her father. Pearl told her he was just a boy with a fast car and no direction. Said her mama left that chapter closed. But now, this man, this stranger in first class, and claiming he was her father. In the fog of airports and paperwork, Zola kept asking questions quietly, to anyone who might know. Where did they take him? Was he awake? Did he say anything else? Days later in London, a letter waited. From Harold's law firm, An invitation, a meeting, and a key. Pearl was skeptical. Powerful men like that, they don't knock unless they want something. But Zola was already on the train. And what she found was a hurricane of truths. Turns out, Harold had known for years. Not at first. Her mother, Elena, never told him. She'd been scared or stubborn, or maybe just trying to protect Zola from the coldness Harold wore like armor. But after Elena got sick, Harold found out. And from that moment, he watched from afar. He donated anonymously to her school, funded community programs under shell names, and every year, he wrote a letter he never sent. The safe deposit box, full of them, pages and pages, dated, signed, addressed to my daughter. He'd watched her grow up from parked cars at school plays, from sidewalk benches across parks. Always close, never near. That photo Zola saw him holding on the plane. Her kindergarten portrait. The one with her missing front tooth and one sock rolled down. He carried it like it was a passport to a world he wasn't allowed to enter. And then came the twist she never saw coming. James Rayne, the man she thought was her father, knew. Yeah, he knew. Her mother had asked him to give Zola his name, to raise her as his own. They'd married in a civil ceremony. No love, just protection. James agreed. Said a child should never feel unwanted. And he meant it. Zola broke down, reading her mother's letter, Elena's handwriting shaky, the paper still faintly smelling of rose lotion. She explained everything. The fear, the illness, the decisions that shaped Zola's world without her knowing. I chose the man who would stay, she wrote. But that doesn't mean the one who left didn't love you. The next day, Zola met Harold again. He looked smaller, older in the hospital suite, but his eyes, that icy blue, were just as sharp. Thank you, he said, for coming, for saving me. Zola didn't say much at first, just stared. Then finally asked, why now? And his answer? Because he was dying. The turbulence that triggered his collapse wasn't just random. It exposed a heart condition he'd been hiding. One bad episode away from goodbye. He didn't want to leave without trying. Trying what she asked. Trying to know you, he said, before it's too late. Zola didn't promise anything. She didn't hug him. But she stayed, listened, watched him talk about chess and economics and the way the Pacific looked from his yacht. She even asked him one question that hung in the air like thunder. Do you regret not fighting for me? And he just looked down. Every day, he whispered. Weeks passed. Then months. Emails became more frequent. Short calls. Slow. Careful bridges built over the canyon of time and silence. She went back home to Baltimore, sat across from Pearl in their tiny kitchen, told her everything. Pearl listened, stirred her tea, and finally said, Child, sometimes the people who made you ain't the same ones who raised you, but that don't mean one matters less. And when Zola visited Elena the first time in years, it wasn't perfect. Elena didn't recognize her at first. The illness had carved tunnels through her memory. But then, suddenly, one touch of the locket around Zola's neck and she whispered, You kept it. Yeah, she remembered. And they cried. And they talked. And for one fleeting moment, Zola was just a daughter again. In the end, she didn't move into Harold's mansion. Didn't take the last name Langston, but she kept the key to that box. Kept the letters. And when Harold passed months later, she read every one of them out loud on a live stream. Not for fame, but for every kid who ever wondered why their father disappeared, and maybe, just maybe, to forgive him. You see, sometimes the people we save are the ones who needed saving long before they ever needed CPR. And sometimes the life we save is our own. Now tell me, do you think Harold deserved forgiveness? Was Zola right to open the door to him, even at the very end? Or do some truths come too late? Let me know in the comments. Because this story right here, it's got no easy answers. But it's got a whole lot of heart.